Marshawn Evans, a former contestant on The Apprentice. Good to see you, Marshawn. Thank you for coming on.
Hi there, Don. Thank you.
Of course. And when you saw the Access Hollywood video, what was your reaction?
Well, I wasn't surprised. I was actually on The Apprentice the same year that these comments took place. Obviously, I didn't know about them back then in 2005. But I wasn't surprised because on this show, he always made comments about women. And I'm not even surprised now, but I am disappointed. My real problem is that there was no outrage, there was no shock and awe until there was a specific and explicit comments made about white women. You know, he has been talking about women like me. He's been talking about my brethren that are Mexican and of different religions. He's been talking about veterans and the disabled and mocking them. And he's done all of this on camera. It's been heard. We're not talking about 11 years ago. We're talking about
You're flat out saying you believe
year.
that there's an element of racism here because
Absolutely.
This is out of all the things he said, and he said a lot of things, that it
things.
was his comments on white women that really was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, I run one of the largest coaching companies for women in the country. I'm helping them to grow successful businesses in the marketplace. And one of the things that we teach about being successful in business is that what gets measured gets multiplied. And all of these politicians in leadership are very cognizant of counting the cost of losing their support. Now, I say this with all love in my heart for people of all races, women of all races. Attack against one woman anywhere is an attack against all women everywhere. But where were the women and where were all the political leaders that were outraged when he disparaged Mexican Americans and Black Americans, and even when he was firing shots at Rosie O'Donnell and other people over the last several years?
People were upset, but he overcame it.
Well, I don't know. There's a difference between coverage and there's a difference between talking about something and consent. And when you have leaders who are willing to still campaign with a man who will talk about categories of Americans who apparently are disposable and dismissible. And then you have evangelicals who in the last 48 hours somehow have seen the light and have now decided that this is the time to speak out because they can no longer stay it. Particularly some Caucasian women who, again, I love, I read their books, I believe in a lot of what it is that they teach, but I did have a problem with why now? Yeah. Why is it because, why wasn't it important enough to speak out when other people who are loved by the same God that we think that we talk about, why weren't they important enough to speak out for and fight for?
Marshawn, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said you weren't surprised because this has happened before. So I want you, did you not say that?
Are you talking about the lewd comments?
Yeah. That he made, did you hear him make lewd comments before about women and about minorities?
Well, let me tell you, I have been around professional athletes my entire life. I have 2 brothers, 8 male cousins. I've grown up around the boys, and I used to, again, represent pro ball players. So I'm very used to the type of talk that is the type of person that is a Donald Trump. I've always said he has more in common with a Hugh Hefner than he does a Bloomberg or Warren Buffett. But yes, on the show, he definitely talked about women. He was always commenting about women and how they looked. You could be in the middle of a conversation with him and having a conversation about business, and he would stop to compliment you on your beauty. There were multiple segments which were edited out where he would curse or use profanity or say something that was inappropriate. But at the end of the day, he is an entertainer. We knew that going into it. And for all the people that are very interested in more tapes being released, I too was required to sign a $5 million 5-year non-disclosure agreement. So I couldn't say anything until 2010. And by then, my life was focused on a few other things.
You think that a lot of people aren't saying anything because they signed this non-disclosure?
Oh, I can tell you why people aren't saying things. I'm not bound by my non-disclosure agreement anymore. But most people who were on the original version of The Apprentice are not saying things. And I've called them cowards. I've been very direct in saying that because they don't want to ruffle feathers. They don't know whether or not he's going to win, and they're opportunists. I think that that's a character problem. There have been people from The Apprentice who have reached out to me and said that I'm making the wrong move, that I could, like he, could be flying on Trump airplanes and helicopters, and there's not enough jet fuel in the world to get me to compromise my soul. But my point about the tapes and the demand to have more tapes from The Apprentice being released, for all my movie buffs, are you not already entertained? There has been more than enough, and if we are not intellectually astute enough to determine the heart of this man, the character of this man, the intentions of this man, and the evil, I don't call him evil, but I do believe that there is something wrong with somebody who likes to create division in our country. Are you not already entertained enough? And I think that's a reflection of our sloth-addicted culture, where we are so addicted to entertainment that we want and we crave more. It's kind of sickening.
Yeah. So two things before I let you go, and you need to come on more because I mean, I
love for us to come on and have a conversation about race. I mean, not race, but religion.
Yeah, yeah. So why so for this particular?
Oh, absolutely. The hypocrisy amongst the conservatives and evangelicals in being silent and having what I call the SO syndrome, SO standing for selective outrage, where you selectively choose what you stand for. And then the comment, I lead a community of 100,000 women of faith. To build their businesses in the marketplace. And these issues of faith and business, race and politics, they blend together, but they're used very strategically to get votes. And so I think that there is, and a lot of people are really wrestling. They struggle with how to vote, what to do based off of their faith. And the fact that we have selective outrage is hypocrisy. Yeah. We pick and choose who is important enough. Who is important enough to speak out on? And it's not a matter of we can just agree to disagree. I don't believe these are political issues. I believe these are social ills that represent the heart of America.
Marshawn, I have to go, but I have to ask you, yes or no, do you think
that
these were locker room conversations? You mentioned athletes.
I think these are front and center conversations, the same ones
his
that
comments,
caused,
I mean. You think that was a locker room conversation?
I think that his comments were front and center. I think they reflect the heart of a man. And I also think that there is something to be said about this. It's one of those things where you can't just say they were locker room comments. These are comments of iniquity. Yeah. And these are very dangerous. We should be not only paying attention, but for people who don't speak out, I say shame on you.
Thank you. I enjoyed that conversation. Marshawn Evans.